Good morning and welcome to the online service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Stony Brook. My name is Dave Tarbell and I'm pleased to be acting as your worship associate this morning. Our service leader this morning is our minister, Margie Allen. She has just returned from her annual study leave. Once again, we must give thanks to all those behind the scenes who helped to bring these services to you. While we would love to be back in our sanctuary on Nichols Road, all the data suggests that we will be doing services this way for the foreseeable future. The rules dictated by this pandemic create hardship for us all. We hope that our service this morning will bring at least some solace to a troubled soul and help us to retain our sense of community. I'd like to offer a special welcome to anyone who is new to our fellowship. Our services vary a great deal in style and content, and we hope you will visit us more than once to get a sense of who we are as a true community of faith. Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religion with no fixed creed that everyone has to accept. We are guided by our 7 principles and multiple sources of inspiration. You will find information about these on our website at UUFSB.org. Our youth and family services have been suspended for the summer. They will continue again in the fall. At the conclusion of our morning service, we will have a virtual coffee hour. It will take a few minutes for everyone to be admitted to the full gathering with active video and audio, so please be patient while our tech team accomplishes this. After you've had a chance to say your greetings to all gathered this morning, you may choose to move to our smaller chat rooms where you will have an opportunity for a more full conversation. To do this, you must leave this meeting and separately join the small group chat meeting. The link for that is posted on our website and also available from Saturday's newsfeed.
The voice of our morning bell is an invitation to step together into a special time and a sacred space in which, if we are lucky and paying attention, the web of life that connects us all becomes visible, and the flow of energy that connects us to all beings and the earth and the universe becomes a pulse we can feel as it moves through our bodies. May you find here the stillness, the words, the images, the melody, the focus and the courage to remember that you are a living conduit for that eternal flow.
You might choose to light a chalice or candle as we light ours. The chalice lighting words this morning were penned by Erich Heller Wagner. Blessed is the fire that burns deep in the soul. It is the flame of the human spirit, touched into being by the mystery of life. It is the fire of reason, the fire of compassion, the fire of community, the fire of justice, and the fire of faith. It is the fire of love burning deep in the human heart, the divine glow in every life.
Good people of this fellowship, it is so satisfying to have returned to you after what I call the year of disappear, a long stretch of sabbatical leave followed by 2 weeks of vacation and 4 weeks of prep time called study leave. I was back in June just long enough to practice 3 times with this incredible team who invented our virtual services while I was away, and to learn not to rock that boat. It's truly delicious to be back among you. And now I look forward to seeing you in your little windows at the big greet after the service this morning. I want us to enter into worship together just with a little moment of attention to your bodies, a few seated stretches. So I'm going to ask you first to sit up tall wherever you are, however you're sitting, and take a deep, slow breath in and then out. Now, I want you to turn at your hips, turn your torso to the right and look as far behind you to the right as you can, turning your head that way as well. But you want the motion to come from your hips. Feel the stretch in your hip. And then the other way to the left. Start your hips first. Feel that stretch down in the low back on the sides. So now back to the center and stretch your arms upward as high as you can, watching them rise. You might want to hold one wrist and then let go and put your right arm up a little higher and left arm up a little higher. And again. Good, reach. And turn your head all the way to the right while they're up, while your arms are up in the air. And then all the way to the left. Then bring your arms down and relax. If you feel any different now from before, you could put that in the chat. Let us know how that movement affected you. Might not be aware of it right now, but maybe later. Let us know. Our human world around us is in a state of contraction, but we don't have to be. We know the world is big and wild and beautiful, and that we are a natural outgrowth of a great web of life on this earth that has nothing to do with money or elections or the accumulation of inedible things or the health of a democracy. We are fundamentally creatures among creatures in an interdependent world. This morning, we remember to stretch into that world, a beautiful world. Our first hymn is number 42 in our hymnal, Morning So Fair to See. I hope you'll sing or hum or dance along wherever you might be in this moment. We'll sing all 3 verses. As some of you know, I spent 5 weeks this summer at the Rowe Center, a Unitarian Universalist camp and conference center in northwestern Massachusetts, up on the northeast edge of the Berkshires, up in the hills where it was cool most days, thankfully. I had a small house all to myself on the edge of a sparsely populated old orchard. There was a lake I could walk to about a mile away, though I must admit I often drove. I would work from morning coffee to afternoon swim and then listen to podcasts and watch documentaries and things like that in the evenings. It was a happy rhythm of mostly sunny bird-sung days and many clear cricket-strummed nights. During those days and nights every summer, I stretch, body and soul. I stretch. I reach beyond the clench of the year and the alarm bells and the news and the things I already know to remember the bigger web that holds me, to lean into the limitlessness of our unimaginable connectedness, and to fish with great delight in the vast depths of things I do not know for the good ideas that propagate there beyond my usual reach. I unfold, and my consciousness, my soul's body, drops back down into awareness of the web. Now, towards the end of July, the Perseid meteor showers peak as Earth crosses the orbital path of Comet Swift-Tuttle, and bits of comet debris slam into our upper atmosphere and burn up. One clear night during the peak this summer, I turned off all the lights in the house and went on what I call a star walk in the orchard. The moon was rising behind the house, so the dome of the sky was dark and lit above the trees by that stunning light show of stars and the great river of the Milky Way that I'm sure you also in your time have witnessed. I picked out a few stars and constellations I know: the Bears, the big one and the little one, the North Star, the Northern Cross, Cassiopeia. Some of many shapes and points that outline human stories that have been told for several 100,000 years, stories we still live in our own ever modern way. Human longings, aspirations, fears, foibles, they really don't change all that much. We project our concerns into the predictable patterns we see on a dark night like that one. We can read about ourselves everlasting up there and know at the same time what a miracle it is that we exist at all in such a vast and still quite mysterious universe of celestial bodies and debris. I'm telling you today about this experience and another one later on in the service because they help me remember how really very small each of us is in space and time, and how very little of what happens around us is unique in human history. Our survival as a species hinges on our ability to remember that the whole system operates as a unity. It is Unitarian. Looking up at the stars in that dark orchard, I get lost and found again, stretching out in the net of light, held there in the stories of the vain queen, the star that guided slaves to freedom in the north, Perseus holding the severed head of Medusa, the Big Dipper, and yes, 2 shooting stars. The edges of my body shimmer and dissolve into the net, and for a moment, I am gone, and I am not afraid. Nothing can separate me or any of us from this beauty, in that we are all saved. The whole system is universalist. Pulling together across the web, we can survive anything. remembering the strength and grace of the whole we are. No storm can upend us, though the whole net shiver with dismay. We lost the great John Lewis this summer, a civil rights hero, a defender of our democracy, a warrior for equal rights right up to the very day he died. In the prologue of his memoir, Lewis told a powerful story from his childhood, and Dave is going to share it with us now.
The children were my cousins, Roy Lee and Jimmy Boy, Muriel and Leslie, Will Muriel, about a dozen of them all told, along with my older sister Aura and my brothers Edward and Adolph, and me, 4-year-old John Robert. Almost every neighbor we had in our little corner of Pike County, Alabama, was a sharecropper, and most of them were our relatives. Nearly every adult I knew was an aunt or an uncle, every child my first or second cousin. That included my Uncle Rabbit and Aunt Sinova and their children, who lived about a half a mile or so up the road from us. On this particular afternoon, it was a Saturday, I'm almost certain, about 15 of us children were outside my Aunt Sinova's house playing in her dark yard. The sky began clouding over, the wind started picking up, lightning flashed far off in the distance, and suddenly I wasn't thinking about playing anymore. Lightning terrified me, and so did thunder. My mother used to gather us around her whenever we heard the thunder, and she'd tell us to hush, be still now, because God was doing his work. That was what thunder was, my mother said. It was the sound of God doing his work. But my mother wasn't with us on this particular afternoon. Aunt Sinova was the only adult around, and as the sky blackened and the wind grew stronger, she herded us all inside. Her house was not the biggest place around, and it seemed even smaller with so many children gathered inside. The wind was howling now, and the house was starting to shake. We were scared. Even Aunt Sinova was scared. And then it got worse. Now the house was beginning to sway. The wood plank flooring beneath us began to bend, and then a corner of the room started lifting up. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. None of us could. This storm was actually pulling the house toward the sky with us inside it. That was when Aunt Sinova told us to clasp hands, line up, hold hands, she said, and we did as we were told. Then she had us walk as a group toward the corner of the room that was rising. From the kitchen to the front of the house we walked, the wind screaming outside, sheets of rain beating on the tin roof. Then we walked back in the other direction as another end of the house began to lift. And so it went back and forth, 15 children walking with the wind, holding that trembling house down with the weight of our small bodies. More than half a century has passed since that day, and it has struck me more than once over the many years that our society is not unlike the children in that house, rocked again and again by the winds of one storm or another, the walls around us seeming at times as if they might fly apart. Children holding hands, walking with the wind, that's America to me. Not just the movement for civil rights, but the endless struggle to respond with decency, dignity, and a sense of brotherhood to all the challenges that face us as a nation and as a whole.
Please join me in a moment of meditation, reflection, and prayer. Settle in your chair. There's going to be an image on the screen that you may want to watch after a while. Otherwise, you can close your eyes, or after you've seen that for a while, close your eyes. I'm going to offer a few words, the image, a time of silence together, and then the song, Spirit of Life, to bring us back together from the places where we go in that silence. I invite you to recall Sorry, everybody. If you haven't already, a time of your life when you had that sense, however fleeting it might have been, of being lost and found all at the same time in the web of all being. It could be an experience like my star walk, but there are plenty of other ways that human beings experience the bigness of things. The net of life in which we swing like a reader in a hammock. You might have been lying on your back, looking at the tops of the trees moving against the sky or the clouds. You might have been dancing in a rainstorm or viewing the world from the branches of a tall tree that you climbed as a child. You might be birthing a baby or creating some other work of great art, or watching the waves crash in and swish out over the sand at the beach. Whatever it was, and whenever it was, I invite you to take that memory with you into the silence that follows now. And when the piano calls you back, sing. Pelham Lake in the town of Rowe was created by a small dam, but it's been there a long time. The lake covers 71 acres and is only 8 feet deep at its deepest. I swam there nearly every day it wasn't raining. I think, in fact, perhaps that I was a seal or a fish or a dolphin in some other life, in some other arrangement of the stardust that we come from. I love the weightlessness I have in water and the coolness of the water touching every part of my body and the stretch and reach of the act of swimming. Maybe some of you remember during your meditation feeling immersed in the web of all life through immersion in water like that. That's where I go to when I swim. When I'm in that place of floating among companions in the brimming bowl of the web, a part of everything, and continuous with the shore and mountains and clouds and blue and green and cool, I am routinely nearly overcome with gratitude for the gift of life and all my relations in it. I hang in the water, my arms out straight, my legs dangling in the coolest of the cool, and I tip my head back and I say to myself, thank you. Sometimes out loud, thank you for the stretch and the reach of swimming, for my hands piercing the surface beyond my head and pushing the water back towards my feet. Thank you for the kick, the scissor, the frog of my legs as they work with my arms to move me forward across the lake, along the shore, into the lily pad field. Thank you for the deep breaths of air drawn into my lungs, fueling my muscles, deeper than I ever breathe on an ordinary day. Thank you for the rippling bed I lie on as I look at the sky or close my eyes and disappear from myself into the web. Everything becomes so simple in those moments. Be grateful, honor your body, look around you, practice humility, stretch out, rest, visit the others, listen. And I notice the things that last a long time, things that don't penetrate the skin of human perspective. The mountain that borders the lake to the northeast is older by far than I, and will outlive me and the lake probably. That it reminds me of a swimmer itself, where it lies there between the water and the sky, hip, elbow, and head above the water in a slow, very, very slow, extremely slow stroke of the crawl. That's the human story I tell about it. But that mountain is one of us, nevertheless, a node on the web of all things, as is the blue heron and the robber chipmunk and the knittering titmouse and the hawk with his talon full of fresh meat and the fish that leapt from time to time into the air above the still lake water. There is deep and lasting comfort in experiences like these, of swimming in stars and water, that reduce the eruptions in our everyday lives to a more realistic size. We can only do our best to live long and do good. We can't do everything, but we can join others to add what we know and can do to the genius of the moment. And there are many moments like that where genius is required. We can love the world and help each other, and we can be grateful. And when we forget about all that, we can walk among the stars. We can float like a lily pad between the mud and the blue, blue sky. In closing, I give you Philip Booth's poem, First Lesson. I know you've heard it before, and I know some of you love it. A reflection on teaching his young daughter to float and to survive. Lie back, daughter. Let your head be tipped back in the cup of my hand. Gently, and I will hold you. Spread your arms wide, lie out on the stream, and look high at the gulls. A dead man's float is face down. You will dive and swim soon enough where this tide water ebbs to the sea. Daughter, believe me, when you tire on the long thrash to your island, lie up and survive. As you float now, where I held you and let go, remember when fear cramps your heart, what I told you. Lie gently and wide to the light year stars. Lie back, and the sea will hold you.
It is our spiritual practice to take an offering, which will be shared between our fellowship and an agency doing social justice work. The circumstances caused by the COVID pandemic have put many people in a condition of food insecurity. In response, our Social Action Committee has chosen to make this our Share the Plate focus through the rest of the summer. Hence, the Share the Plate funds will be distributed 80% to Island Food Pantry and 20% to our members in need. During this period when we are not able to meet together, do not forget to send in your pledge and your payments and contributions to our Share the Plate partners. Details on how to make contributions are found in the special news feed. Please be sure to indicate how you want your contribution divided. Details can be found again in the news feed.
Driving near Mount Chavano, it seemed to be looking me over. Feeling that gaze down below, I pulled the car off on the shoulder. Staring at the rock and the sky, my heart began beating more slowly, till I lost track of time and forgot where it was I was going. Suddenly I saw life from the brink. I watched an age pass me by like a wink. For just one heartbeat I believed I could think like a mountain. Mountain, we measure our lives by tens and by 20 years only. So teach us the ways of a million-year mind, what a million-year heart could be hoping. And suddenly I saw life from the brink, and I watched an age pass me by like a wink. For just one heartbeat I believed I could think like a mountain. And oh, if I'm wise, I will strive and I'll pray to turn that one ticking time into a day, and make this poor picture flash life in that way. Like a mountain, like a mountain.
Thank you so much, Tom. Like a mountain. Our closing words are those of the Palestinian poet Naomi Shihab Nye, her poem called Making a Fist. The resolve to persist through a time of suffering requires both a no and a yes. No to the illusion of helplessness and the despair that follows upon it, and yes to life. A hand closed in a fist to defy the odds. An open hand to receive and give and act. For the first time on the road north of Tampico, I felt the life sliding out of me. A drum in the desert, harder and harder to hear. I was 7. I lay in the car, watching palm trees swirl a sickening pattern past the glass. My stomach was a melon split wide open inside my skin. How do you know if you're going to die? I begged my mother. We'd been traveling for days. With strange confidence, she answered, when you can no longer make a fist. Years later, I smile to think of that journey, the borders we must cross separately, stamped with our own unanswerable woes. I, who did not die, who am still living, still lying in the back seat behind all my questions, clenching and opening one small hand. Naomi Shihab Nye. Please join your voices across this virtual space in singing our last hymn, Just as Long as I Have Breath. Say yes. I sound our bell again as we near the close of our service. As I do, drawing in a deep breath, lift your foot and step back through, riding her song into the day that awaits you beyond this threshold.
The time has come to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this chalice flame, but we carry its light and warmth in our hearts from here out into the world.
Our benediction is words of Miller Williams. I know that you've heard this before as well, but always important to bear this in mind, particularly now when so many fears and exasperations are haunting our hearts. Have compassion for everyone you meet, even if they don't want it. What appears bad manners and ill temper or cynicism is always a sign of things no ears have heard, no eyes have seen. You do not know what wars are going on down there where the spirit meets the bone. Amen.